freezing, the first day of the season. Yeah, when it comes to retrieving, old Duke's on his game. A John boat, a couple of mojos. Shoot, they gon' know that we don't play. Swampy feeling, some duck blind healing. High ball calling them more green heads back home. Keep your heads bowed, it's gonna get real loud when that 12 gauge choir sings out a holy song. Well, somebody say amen. Let's give 'em black water baptism.
Welcome to the Simmons Sporting Goods All Things Hunting Podcast, brought to you by Realtree Outdoors, Browning Firearms, and Browning Ammo. Here's your hosts, Caleb Wallace, Cole Barthel, and Kyle Bearfield. Welcome everybody to the Simmons Sporting Goods All Things Hunting Podcast. This is episode number 10. And we're going to be talking a little bit about bow hunting, deer hunting. We probably won't talk much ducks today. This week we're going to do a lot more bow hunting and deer hunting, talk about early season. The season is upon us. It is right here. We'll be hunting real quick. We got a special guest, Todd, Rev. He's the bow guy at Simmons. He does a whole lot more than that. At Simmons, probably keeps the back end of the store running except for guns. He don't mess with the guns too much. He lets Caleb handle all that business. But if it's bow related, he's your man. Got Cole across from me obviously as well. He's gonna get his insight on a lot of deer hunting stuff that he sees, and we'll try to touch on some different things in different parts of the country on deer hunting. But how's it going, Rev? Y'all been busy?
Yeah, man, it's crazy. This time of year, of course, everybody's getting geared up. Arkansas Archery starts this Saturday, a week from Friday. Louisiana starts, so everybody right now has really got it on their mind. Seeing a lot of guys come in right now, trying to finish up, last-minute shopping, picking up a few extra arrows, broadheads, that kind of thing.
What broadhead is the ticket right now?
It just depends. Most guys that are shooting mechanical, a really hot one this year, G5 Mega Meat is flying off the shelf. I can't keep them in stock. Of course, Rage Hypodermic, they've got the new no collar this year, and so a lot of guys, they were out last year, but a lot of guys, I think they've proven themselves, and so a lot of guys are going with those. Grim Reaper still makes a great head, and then as far as fixed blade, G5, probably that Montec is one of the better ones. Slick Trick still makes some really great stuff. And then, of course, you got the guys who are chasing big stuff. I mean, they're going to be shooting, like single bevel kind of stuff. So, but
when you say big stuff, you're talking about like elk and
elk,
bigger than whitetail.
Yeah, elk, mule deer, and we got some guys that's going safari. So
explain that, like when you say single bevel, what you mean, or like brand or
one side. Only one side of the blade is sharpened, so it's meant to turn. And there are some good ones. We've got a couple here in stock, solid, that we keep. But as far as most of them, the guys that are making those type really heavy broadheads, they sell them only direct to consumers. And so, but we have a lot of guys that bring them in and they want us to set them up, or they want us to fletch. There's some broadhead tuning that has to take place, so it's a little more to it than just going and grabbing a pack off the shelf.
If you had to say right now, number one fixed broadhead out there that you see fly off the shelf. I know this is a lot of people are like, no, that's not it. I get it, I understand, but I'm saying that you see fly off the shelf at Simmons.
The
fixed and expandable, which one?
G5. The fix is going to be that G5 Montec and probably the carbon steel. Okay. And I like it. I really like it because it's easy to sharpen. Mm-hmm. The downfall to it, or maybe something that people don't realize, is because it's carbon steel, it's going to rust. I mean, so it's just like a pocket knife, carbon steel pocket knife. I mean, it's going to rust. So.
I remember we shot them a long time ago. When they just did start rusting, we'd shoot them at hogs.
Oh, yeah. I mean, but the deal is, though, most of those, like a stainless steel, like a sure enough, those hard metals, I mean, they're hard to sharpen. Yeah. So But that carbon steel you can sharpen. A lot of guys like to reuse a fixed blade, and so it's a good option instead of having to worry about buying replacement blades for other ones. I would think expandable. Our biggest seller right now is by far it's going to be the Rage Hypodermic No Collar.
Man, I'm not knocking any Rage. Don't get me wrong, but the biggest bow buck second biggest bow buck. I've lost the two biggest bow bucks in my life. I've lost both of them, but one of them was with a hypodermic, and I'm sure, and I know it's shot placement, but I just, man, I don't know about that hypodermic. I struggle with it. This
is the deal. You and I probably hear more horror stories with that Rage 2-blade than any other. And just because if it's not broadside, if it's a hard quartering shot, they're going to deflect. I mean, that's just.
It's also a little bit of, there's probably more of them shot than any other broadhead, so there's more chances.
That's right.
Exactly.
So your chances are far greater.
Be the most quote popular.
But I have more guys come in, and either it's one of those, either you love them or you hate them, and you hear more stories about, man, I'll never shoot that again. Usually though, if you talk to a guy long enough and he's got an issue, whether it's a broadhead or it's an arrow or even a bow or whatever it is, if you talk to him long enough, you're going to find out that there was something bad happened, and usually it was a bad shot, and it really wasn't the equipment's fault. It was poor, usually user error. So, but this is the deal. You have to have confidence.
Far back, but still, I was a little bit.
You have to have confidence in your equipment. That's the biggest thing I tell people when they walk in and they're like, well, I want to try something new. And I'm like, well, what are you using? And they say, well, I've had good luck out of this. And I'm like, well, if it works, then shoot it. I mean, whatever.
That's right. I believe that too. And a lot of times, like this is my opinion based on what I've seen. And you can tell me if you think this is right based on your knowledge on it. But a lot of times with any expandable, Rage or whatever it is, the problems occur with people that are trying to shoot too light of an arrow or too light a poundage, and you really need some kinetic energy to really punch that home.
Well, and so the whole draw to expandables is you get a bigger cut.
Right.
So everybody wants a bigger cut, because with a fixed broadhead you're going to get about 1 1/8 inches. That's as big as you're going to get. So everybody wants a bigger cut. So with a 2-inch cut, but you've got to have some height behind that thing. Okay, you think 2 inches, you got to have. Yeah, and so I have guys I had a guy in the shop today, and his son was with him, and he's right on the bubble. He's like 48 pounds, and he's like, well, can he shoot a expandable? And I'm like, I wouldn't encourage it. I would rather him have a good fix. He's got a better chance, because you get an expandable with, a 2-inch cut, and they have some of them now 2.3. I mean, that's a big, you got to have a lot of oomph behind that blade.
But on a kid like that, man, I would think, man, put him in a muzzy or slick trick or something like that, and go with it, man.
And slick tricks fly, and I know this from experience. My son for the last 6 years, and a friend of mine turned me on to him. He's a good friend of mine. He still shoots them, and he believes in them. He's like, man, just try this, because they shoot as close to your field tips. Some broadheads, you're going to have to do some broadhead tuning. I tell people all the time, look, if you're going to shoot a fixed broadhead, you really need to check it.
I would assume that's probably a very popular question when they come in, what broadhead flies.
Oh, yeah. Well,
true.
Yeah.
I mean, what broadhead flies true to my...
And this is the deal. For the most part, Rage, I have very few people that come in that say, they're going to tell you, man, you can check those, and they're going to fly as close to your field point as anything there. But fix is where you really have issues, and most people, they're like, well, I hate fixed blades because they don't fly true.
Right.
And you end up having to. I mean, if you're going to shoot fixed, I know a lot of guys that they're dead set on fixed. If they're going to shoot fixed, that's all they practice with is fixed. The other thing, like we're talking about mechanicals, you take a Rage 2-blade mechanical, well, then you go to a 3-blade mechanical like the Mega Meat. That's really, it's hot this year. And I've seen firsthand, I mean, I've got some guys brought in some photos, and man, it's nasty what that thing will do. But at the same time, it's a 2-inch mechanical broadhead, but you got 3 instead of 2 blades. The thing I like about it is you think about, so a 2-blade, kind of like an envelope, whenever it closes back up. So that exit wound, once that blade goes through, it closes back up. That 3-blade, it makes almost like a triangle, so it stays open.
Yeah.
And that's what guys are liking about it.
Oh,
so the 3-blade, the Mega Meat, also the Grim Reaper has a 3-blade that works really well.
Yeah, like the original, the original Rage, probably the most hated on broadhead in the world, was a 3-blade Rage.
Yeah.
And I killed more deer with that broadhead, but
if you hit them in the right spot, it's the baddest
Oh, yeah.
hole and the baddest blood trail of any broadhead I've ever seen. But I just struggled with the forgiveness on it.
Sure, and I tell this to guys all the time. You take that whole wall. We got a 20-foot wall full of broadheads over there.
Mm-hmm.
You can take that whole wall, and there's not a bad blade on the wall if you hit them in the right spot.
Oh, yeah.
So it's all about shot placement.
I always ask, what's the best one for forgiveness?
Well, yeah.
And, to be honest, personally, I've shot a Muzzy for a long time, shot a Slick Trick for a long, shot a Rage at times.
Hey, I'm going to tell you, though, talking about the Rage, probably in the last 4 or 5 years, there's probably been more deer killed with a Rage broadhead than any other broadhead on the wall.
Oh, no doubt.
I would argue that with anybody. But prior to that, like whenever I came up hunting, you either shot a Muzzy or a Thunderhead.
Mm-hmm.
That was it.
Mm-hmm.
And man, there's no telling the number of deer that was killed by those. You couldn't put them all in this store.
No, especially that Thunderhead. Oh man.
Huh?
The Thunderhead, yeah.
It was bad.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like something where you flirt with hitting that shoulder dead in the shot.
Think about this. Now there's several different options for guys that are, so if you want the expandable but you still want the fixed, so there's, the hybrid blade.
Yeah.
And so
Troca Muzzy HB.
That's what we've shot the last 2 years.
And there's a lot of guys that are using them and they work really well. And so it's kind of,
and they fly pretty true too.
Yeah,
really true.
They do.
From what we've seen.
They do.
Yeah. We me and Cole, we kind of shoot the same setup. God bless me, built like an orangutan, and so I have really long arms, so I shoot about an inch longer draw length than Cole does. But kinetic energy is what we strive for. And Rev, I'm gonna pick your brain on what you think the best setup is for somebody getting into it in a minute. But we shoot 80 pounds. Now, we can shoot 80 pounds, and we can draw it back sitting down 100 times. So I wouldn't say go try to shoot 80 pounds if you can't do it. But we shoot heavy arrows, like a Full Metal Jacket type arrow.
Sure.
80 pounds. We shoot 100 grain broadhead. We probably should shoot 125 grain heads, but because of that, and the reason, I guess what I'm getting at, the reason why we do that is because we want to be able to shoot that deer through the front shoulder, back, wherever he's angled, we want to be able to touch that opposite side shoulder, to make sure we kill him. And so that's what we do, and we give up some speed because of that.
Oh, yeah.
But we also hunt some deer that are some mega body deer too.
Yeah,
like where you hunting Illinois, hunting on the river, close to the river, hunting in Oklahoma, Kansas is different, and it's different than going to some of these other places.
There's a huge following. There's a guy on YouTube now, Ranch Fairy, and so he's really and it's not just him. There are other guys, but this has been you've been seeing this over the last several years. Coming this way is heavy. Used to everybody, they didn't ask you how much your arrow weighed. They asked you how fast your bow shot, right?
Yeah, that's right.
They didn't care. They wanted how fast is it, And everybody wanted to be as fast as they could, so you went light. You went super light on your arrow. Mm-hmm. Now I've got guys walking in, and they want to be, they're like, man, I want to be 650 grains. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, but, what is that going to do to the speed and your trajectory? On your bow? And they're like, well, I don't care. This guy on, they drank the Kool-Aid. This guy on, YouTube, he says, if I do this, I can shoot through the front shoulders. And I'm like, well, man, I don't want to try it. I said, I know
help it.
I can shoot double longs, and I'm going to find them every time. So why? Yeah, but this, it's going to help me. But usually what happens is you find out these guys, we built one last week, 650 grain set up. And he was shooting a bow that doesn't have the technology these new bows have. It was actually a single cam Matthews bow, a couple years older, and it's like shooting 209 through the chronograph with a 650 grain arrow. And whenever he saw that, he went, well, that's no good. And I was like, well, what did you think it was going to do?
Right.
But you can, this is my deal. I would say the average arrow build that leaves our shop is somewhere around 440 grains, which is a really good whitetail weight.
Right.
If you were chasing mule deer, elk, or if you were going on safari, then yeah, you would definitely want something. You want to be as heavy, but this is the question I ask the guy whenever he walks in and he's like, "Look, I want a new arrow," or he buys a bow, and I'm like, "Well, what are you trying to achieve? Do you want speed or do you want punch?" That's usually my question. If you want punch, I mean, it's the difference between shooting a 223 and a 30-06. I mean,
right.
Whatever you want, and so, it's pretty easy from that point to pick out, 12, like full metal jacket, 300 spines going to be 12 grains per inch, or you can go with, light, it's going to be a hex, like a Easton hex.
Yeah.
It's going to be like 7.3 grains per inch, and so you're going to be looking at like a 380 grain versus, 500.
I know there's an outfitter, a well-known outfitter, we won't say the name, he's in Kansas, and he's all about the punch, and he requests that his clients do not come with an expandable broadhead. He requests that they come with a fixed blade,
yep.
And he doesn't care if you aim for the guts.
Yes.
Just hit him in the middle of the body, we'll find him.
He will find them. But he requests that you do not, please, if you can help it, I don't want.
And the reason why he says shoot him in the body, he says stay away from the front shoulder.
That's right.
If you stay away from the front shoulder, we'll find the deer. If you hit him in the chest.
And most of those guys, go ahead.
Most guys that are wanting heavy, that's what they're trying to do. And I have a ton of them. They say, well, I'm going to shoot him dead in the shoulder. And I'm like, well, why would you do that? You know how many deer I've shot dead in the shoulder and never found?
And some of them didn't die.
And some of them didn't die, no.
Yeah, you're taking a chance.
You're taking a chance. So, me and my son, we've been practicing a couple times a week for the last 4 weeks. And, that shot placement, that's the whole thing I've been preaching to him. And I'm like, dude, and he'll start creeping towards that front because that heart, like on that 3D target, he's trying to hit that heart. And I'm like, let's stay just a little bit further back because, I'd rather a liver shot than you
let him go, you can find him.
That's right. If you let him go, but if you go a little bit the other way and you bury that sun gun up in that shoulder,
you ain't gonna have nothing to track him by. It's a tough call.
If you don't get passed through, there's no blood. So what are you going? I don't know.
And it could be. You can debate that till the cows
hey,
come home.
you can. And look, there's guys in here every day that, they'll debate you. But it's man. You can take the worst broadhead. You can take and I hate to put Walmart on the block, but you can take the cheapest Walmart broadhead they got, and you can shoot him through the lungs.
You can do it with a field point.
That's right, exactly.
And he's done.
He's done.
Exactly.
So, you can spend all the money in the world on the best and the greatest, but if you don't put in the time and the preparation and make sure that your equipment's right, that you're shooting, true. And, that shot placement. And it's practicing that, For years, I used to practice on just a square block target, And that really, that'll get you close. But whenever we moved to 3D targets and, started shooting and even shooting angles with 3D targets. And that's something a lot of people don't do. But, practicing that shot, that quarter and away shot. Where are you going to put it? Where are you going to aim for? A lot of those things, we don't do. But it all leads to success in the end. Preparation.
That's right. Come by Simmons Sporting Goods and check out the new models of the X-Bolt rifle from Browning, the best there is. Now back to the Simmons Sporting Goods All Things Hunting Podcast.
And we'll work our way to the bows and all that coming up. But I know me and Kyle are a fan. Lighted nocks. Are you a fan? Or are you not? And the reason why I say, man, I think it is help when you film a lot. It's definite help. But even if you don't, man, the majority of our deer killed in October a lot of times are borderline light issues.
That's
especially here where we're at. Well, anywhere, man. It really is. And I don't know, even if you're not filming, but when you have a lighted knock and you get your bow tuned in just right for a lighted knock, I don't shoot unless it's a lighted knock. I really don't. And where'd you hit it? I don't know. How many times have you heard, wow, I think it was good. I don't. But man, with that lighted knock, you can ask Kyle. It's just even if you're not filming, you can ask the guys where you hit that deer.
Sure.
And
it does help in that aspect. And the only thing I caution,
But I would say more people don't use them than use them. I mean, I don't know. You
It's
may
only-
know that better. And you probably don't use them, but I don't.
it's
I don't,
probably, I would say probably 50-50 is what I would say. There's a lot of guys that are using them. The thing that I always caution people is you need to you need to shoot with you if you're going to
Practice with them.
That's right. You need to
Yeah.
practice with them all
Even
because
if
they're going to fly.
practice with some old. Keep every era I have has one on there, and
That's
I know
right.
it costs money and it costs.
It does.
But over time, man, the ones that have died out or whatever, man, that's what I practice with.
Sure,
yeah.
that's right.
They don't have to come on all the time, and
Well, you need to know that the weight is a little bit different. The other thing that we found, and this is just through experiences, at longer distances, they will cause it to fly a little bit different. So we found that out. Some guys are having some issues with, an arrow flying funky, or and what we kind of found out is it was the nocturnal delay.
Yeah, a lot of times you got to pay attention, especially if you shoot a deer or something with one. That battery inside your arrow coming off that nock will bend a little bit. When it hits the rock, a tree or rock or whatever, and so you can pull that nock off and see that it's a little bit bent, and it won't affect it until you get out a little bit of distance.
Exactly.
It'll change it, but
Exactly.
so you got to always
but I would definitely say
monitor your arrows.
I am pro not lighted not, but just only because it just helps
Oh, yeah.
you determine where you sit.
Absolutely.
And
I'm
if you
pro
practice
not
with
too.
them and you shoot enough, even at 50 plus or 50, once you figure it out, man, once you be practicing, you have enough of them, man, I don't know.
Oh yeah,
I'm
and I
all for
always
it.
encourage, especially for young archers like you're talking about, young archers, female archers. That gives them that idea. Well, where you can see where the arrow went.
And
where
we've
you
always,
hit.
man, I can say it. I've been there where you like, oh shoot, I got no idea where I hit that deer. I mean, it's been a long time, but I'll be honest. I was like, I got no clue where I hit that deer.
And a lot of times too, we'll in the moment, your adrenaline's running, and the human mind
Yeah.
memorizes things by a series of pictures. It's not like a video. We'll shoot a deer and think we hit him right here, and we'll go back and watch a
Watch
video
it.
and be
That's
like,
right.
oh, we didn't quite hit right where we thought. It's a
Right.
little different. And so the video does help us a lot in that aspect of things. We can go back and see where every deer we shot is hit. We can know if we need to wait overnight or whatever.
That gives you a huge advantage too.
Yeah. What do you do on? And I guess it changes where you hunt, because like if we shoot a deer in Oklahoma, if we leave him overnight, all we're going to recover is a rack. He's going to be eaten to his eyeballs by coyotes every time.
Every single
And
time.
so, but in a normal situation, if you shoot a deer in the afternoon, what would be your recommendations on what to do as far as leaving him, going to trail him? Just how often what do you do?
It's tough
Well,
when it's hot too. I mean,
Well, that's the deal, and you know what? I think it just comes from experience. I know from my own experience, and even hunting with my son over the last, him and my daughter over the last several years, and that'll educate you whenever you take a young archer and put them in a tree, and you get to shooting, and they don't know where they hit, don't know where, and so how many times have you heard when in doubt, back out, or all those things? But in my own experience, I have to know, by looking at the arrow. What does the arrow look like?
Exactly.
What kind of blood do you have?
I think you're dead on.
Immediately what I'm going to do if I shoot one, or even if Clayton shoots one, I'm telling you sit there for 30, 40 minutes, whatever. I know that's the hardest thing to do, but you get down, you ease out there to where your area is or where you shot the deer. If you don't see anything, then we're going to camp.
Right.
And and we're not filming, so we're going to talk about it. We're going to discuss it, and
we
what
do
I'm
the
going to
same
say.
thing with a gun too.
Exactly.
Yep.
And I'm going to say, hey, where do you think you hit the deer at? What did he do whenever you hit him? Did you hear him crash?
Yeah.
Did all those things we go
Did you
through
see
that?
him run?
Yeah, how
after
far?
shot?
What was he doing when
Yeah.
he ran? Those, and I think all that just comes with experience and doing it. And
That's
for
exactly
guys that have never bow hunted, those are things that it's hard to have like a written, this 10-step guide. This is how you approach because every shot's different, every deer's different.
I do know that it's exactly what you're saying. It's experience, and we've all been deer hunting for 25, 30 years, and we've seen a lot of blood trails. We've seen everything, and I think that on on every blood trail, I can look at it and I know exactly where the deer's hit and all this and that. But I'm always,
Sure.
you know, I'm always taught a lesson on every single one. I may not be right on this one or close, you know, but just like you said, if I'm a hunter getting into bow hunting and may not know these things, the best thing you can do is if you shoot a deer, you know, go back in, you stay in your stealth mode. Do not let that deer know you're in the world. Let him go do his thing, monitor what he did, where he went, where he was standing, make a good point. If you see him run by a certain tree, mark that tree within your mind.
Pull your map out and look at your vitals, man. See where exactly where you hit him, and look it up if you don't know. Look it up, man. We've done that plenty of times, and Google something. I was just going to bring that up, but Kyle can talk about what Drury's got.
Yeah, they got a good app that tells you about shot
I
placement.
I know, but how many times have you talked to people though, and their biggest regret was, well, I wish I would have waited.
Oh,
because how many times have you went in there and bumped a deer, and that was it? If you would have, like, especially on a liver shot, if you would have just left,
he may not stop running until he dies.
That's right. So
and he's not, and you're not gonna. If he's hauling tail, you're not gonna find much blood.
No, you're not gonna. So you know, that's tough. And there are some guys around here, you know, it's got some good dogs now, and so I mean, there are, you know, some ways that you can find these deer, but man, for the most part, patience. I think patience is the key. If you to recovering, because this is the deal, you want to be good stewards, and if you, I mean, if he comes
down between wasting meat or recovering a nice buck, man, that's a tough call. I get it. I understand both sides on that. I mean,
and look, there are some circumstances and some situations. A couple years ago, my wife shot one and a good deer. We had a little bit of blood, but I knew it wasn't a great shot, and I was like, we gotta, you know, let's just go to camp, and you know, well, then it started pouring down rain.
Oh yeah,
and so. You know, at that point, you're like, okay, well, what do we do? And we end up bump that deer. And you know,
I think if you one thing about waiting is if you do get after one and you stumble upon a deer bed with blood in it, you're in trouble.
Yep.
You better then at that point you better back out because
if you come up on, you can tell where he laid down and there's blood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you have time on your side and you have weather on your side, just back out every time, just about. And
I mean,
and that doesn't always happen.
Right.
Man,
and in y'all's situation, I mean, with the coyotes and stuff, man, that really stinks. I mean, you know, it's not as bad in Illinois. We've left them overnight, and they will gnaw at them a little bit, but they're not going to be destroyed. And that's always our deal, man. You know, let's just go. I mean, go to camp.
Yeah.
And that's that may be the hardest 12, 18 hours or whatever, how long it is before you find that deer. But
that's right.
Wouldn't you rather recover that deer or, you know, never find it?
We've been on some massive track jobs during the daytime and seen deer go over 1,000 yards with a one lung hit, you know, and stuff like that. So if you push them, they're gonna go. I do know a guy that's got a really, really good dog in Illinois, and he tells you this, that if you have a good dog in the area or somebody you can call, if you make a bad hit on a deer and you think you've gut shot him, he is 100% finding deer that have been gut shot. If you don't call him and you don't mess with him for, you know, 16 to 24 hours, you know, so it's hard to wait that long, but you don't have to wait long. You know, 12 hours is what I'd recommend on a gut shot deer.
Sure.
But he's 100% finding those deer.
Oh yeah.
Where he's not finding them. Is he
scent tracking that?
Yeah,
because there's a guy in Rapeville right now that they're not blood trailing. They're scent trailing that deer.
Well, no, his dog is the gut, because of the gut smell.
Yeah,
that's why he's saying he can find them. But you know, we'd say, you know, people, you hear 30 minutes if you slam dunk one, you can find him. We've pushed some deer that have been slam dunked like that.
It's also when they fall in the food plot, but they don't always happen like you see it on TV.
He will get up and run off.
Yeah, he will. We know that from me.
We usually, you know, we wait overnight. Usually, if we shoot one afternoon and we're not just 100% sure, man, he is double lung dead, there's blood everywhere, the air is coated red, we'll leave him overnight.
Yeah.
And
and this is the deal. Usually, even in that situation though, and I've been there before, where I mean, the next morning you get there and he may not have run 100 yards.
Oh yeah.
And you're like,
if we'd just kept walking.
But no. If you'd have kept walking, you could have bumped him and he's gone. So you never know. And that's always where you begin to second guess yourself. But it always feels good to put your hand on that deer the next morning, and you know that feels good.
Yeah, that's correct.
That's a tough one.
We're going to take a little break, and we'll get right back with you. We may get into a little bit of deer scouting and talk about some public land hunting. Rev does a lot of that up in Illinois, and me and Cole have done a little bit of it, but not near as much. We've been usually hunting our lease stuff.
Come by Simmons Sporting Goods and check out the new A5 semi-auto shotguns from Browning, the best there is. Now back to the Simmons Sporting Goods All Things Hunting podcast.
Welcome back to the Simmons Sporting Goods All Things Hunting podcast. We're halfway through with this one, or may speed it up. We'll see. It depends on, may go longer. We'll see what we get into, but kind of quizzing Todd on some things and kind of going over some of our experiences too. And we've covered some broadheads, covered some arrows. We hadn't covered bows yet. We're going to touch on bows here before we end this thing, but we're going to cover a little bit of maybe a few different hunting techniques and a little bit of public land stuff that Todd does more of than we do. We've done some public land stuff, but not as much as he has, and compared to, you know, lease hunting, private land hunting, hunting clubs, whatever that. We won't go into too deep of stuff, but kind of just touch on a little bit of that.
What's your favorite state to bow hunt?
Well, I think everybody knows we hunt Illinois, southern Illinois, and we've been going up there for years. Some friends, and we've had some success up there. Killed some good deer on some public land, and it's tough hunting. And but you know, if you put in the work and the time, it can be very rewarding.
You know, so me and Cole, we have the convenience or the blessing to be able to scout way in advance and run trail cameras and stuff on private land and get to know our deer. We have a longer period to put in the work to kill one, but on public land you don't necessarily have that convenience. What if you were fixing to go on a deer hunt? What would be your method of going to from start to finish to kill a deer?
You know, I think with technology today, you need to take advantage of all the technology, and so there are a lot of maps. And so, like used to, we didn't have all that. I can remember when we first started, we had like a plat book. It's basically what you had in it, right. And it showed you, kind of where public land was. And so, you didn't have these topo maps, and you didn't have all the technology that these apps on your phone now. And so you can look. That does a lot of the footwork for you. Where used to we walked and looked and walked. I mean, so if you do your homework, that'll cut it down. You can kind of narrow down, and then finding places where least amount of pressure. That's what I'm looking for. And so if you can get away from where people have easy access, so if you can access it in another way, maybe by boat, or crossing, getting permission to cross some private to get to the backside of something. I mean, there's a lot of ways that you can go about that, and then it's boots on the ground. I mean, and we do a good bit of scouting in the spring, and a lot of people are like, well, that's kind of crazy, but we started this several years ago, and so we kind of make a shed hunting trip, and we would also do some scouting because. That time of year, there's some very defined trails, and I mean, you can really see a lot of right. Old scrapes and hook-ins, and you can tell a lot, and you're not worried about disturbing bedding areas and bumping deer, all that kind of stuff. I think the best opportunity you have on public ground is the very first time you sit your butt in the tree.
That's right.
I mean, whenever you sit down, and so I want to try to be as prepared as I can. Whenever we go in, and so that may mean going in 2 or 3 weeks in advance and picking out the right tree, and studying it. And after you hunt a place, as long as we've been up there, we all have kind of our own places, and we have areas that we hunt, and you have to learn it, and it takes a while. There's some people though that they're just, I mean, I don't believe in luck, but they're very fortunate. I mean, they can stumble into a place, climb a tree, and kill a deer. It doesn't always happen like that. So once you find the place, you got to find the corridors, the travel areas, pinch points, all those things. And then some of the hardest things you'll have to do on public land is picking the right tree. And me and Clayton hung a set this weekend on some private, but he had hunted it the year before, and we knew where he was at, and he was saying, look, I want to be, those deer I saw last year, they were right there, and I need to be here. Well, you try to figure out which tree, and so if you're going into a new area you've never hunted before, and trying to find trails, if you can, using scouting cameras. I mean, those are really great. Tell you, where the deer are traveling, and trying to figure out where you want to be. How far do you feel comfortable shooting? Where do you want your stand to be? So, I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. But again, it all goes back to preparation and putting in the time.
Yeah. I think that carries over in private land or any hunting.
The best chance you have of killing a big whitetail,
A doe, anything, a deer, is that first time you're in the woods. So me and Cole, we always preach to the other guys we hunt with and stuff, do not go into your honey hole unless it is perfect. The deer's doing right, the weather's right, your access is right. Make that first sit in there count.
Sure.
Don't go in there on a BS weather day when it's hot and all that, because they
well,
know.
I can remember. Listen, I can remember when we were young though, and this is like Felsenthal's not too far from here. We used to hunt it a bunch, and man, we would go and we would scout for a couple of days before we ever hunted. Well, time you done laid down all that scent and busted out all all the woods up there, and I mean, you wouldn't gonna see nothing. And so man, the very first time I go in, now I may go in, but I'm gonna try to pick a route where I can slip in and get out, hang my set, and I really want it to be raining. Yeah, whenever I do that, and if you can do that in the rain
or wet,
yeah. I like it wet, and I know that it's gonna rain, and then I'm gonna back out for a couple days, and then the wind's got to be right. I mean, that's
well, just because you got that big deer on camera, and this public land, man, just because you got him on camera and it's opening day, man, we talked about this before. That's
the hardest thing to do. Yeah.
Be careful, because you ain't gonna kill him if you don't make sure it's right, especially wind and weather. If you're not right, you're in trouble. And access getting in there and out, man. Especially if you're hunting over feed too. If you're hunting over bait, we won't even get into that this podcast. But man, you got to be really, really careful.
Still, I mean, a mature whitetail, you're gonna get. I mean, if you get 2 chances at him, you're very fortunate. Yeah. Usually it's 1, and if you
bow hunting for sure.
If you mess that up,
yes.
I mean, I've had encounter with some good deer and got busted, and that was it. I mean, you never saw that deer again. Younger deer, I mean, immature deer, you can get away with that. I mean, they may bust you, and a couple of days later they may be back by. That big deer, no, he's gone.
I may be dead wrong on this, but I feel like your scent and stuff is there all through the night, even when you're gone. And I've seen this in Kansas in particular, where we do hunt over bait. We put, in Kansas is known for going out pouring, almost a half a pallet of corn out on the ground in front of your stand 3 days before you go hunt, and then slip in there. But when you do that, and I've hunted with outfitters and stuff in Kansas that do that, the first day you see a bunch of deer, and the wind may be perfect. You get out of there, undetected, and everything's good. The next day you see a little bit less. The next day a little bit less, and then finally, eventually, you don't see many deer. And I know that is because it's from 2 things. It's from getting busted by deer you never knew busted you, and that they smell you at night. And stuff,
I'll tell you, this is the thing, and I learned this from a good friend of mine, and it made sense, and I even tested it later. But around here, you really can't see, especially hunting feed piles or food plots like that. Those deer are going to come in downwind, but because where we're located, you can't really see them. But you go to Kansas, and you go to South Texas, you go to these places where you can see a good ways. Yeah. You watch those deer
every single time. You have to play the wind, or
they're going. Hey, even if they're coming to that feed pile, they're going to come in downwind, and guess what? They're going to check the wind. If they smell you, they're not coming in. Well, think about this: no feed, no food plot. Think about that situation. Those deer. I had a deer last year. He was just a good 6 point. He was really wide, young deer, And I mean, he came, he followed the script, came right in. I mean, perfect. The wind was in my favor. But he went around and he hit a ridge behind me, and I just kept waiting. I knew, man, it's coming. And he followed that ridge, and whenever the wind got just.
We watched it all the time. Man.
Just perfect.
Yeah.
I'm talking
He'll
about,
stop.
it was just like somebody pulled the emergency brake.
You're like, it's happening. Just watch.
And he throwed his old head up, and he smelled it. And whenever he did, man, he stomped and snorted, just carried on, and the whole way he went away, from me. I mean, he was upset, but it was kind of funny to watch that. But that's the deal.
That's right. I grew up thinking that bucks didn't snort. Only does blew, but that ain't the case. Them bucks will blow at
Man,
you
that
too.
dude, he blowed and blowed and blowed. There was nothing around that didn't know where I was.
No, that's
Last
brutal.
year in Oklahoma, killed a big deer. When I found him, it was bow season on camera, and there was just not many trees to pick from, really one. And he was coming to a feed location, and everything was perfect. The trails and stuff looked like they were perfect, coming up a draw from my right to left, and there was a ridge that ran up behind me. And the first afternoon I sat there, I watched a doe and a yearling do it, and then I watched a little spike do it, and I watched another little buck do it. They would be coming perfectly up the trail. The wind be blowing straight from the feed to me in my face. They'd be coming perfectly in front of me, and when they got about 40 or 50 yards from that feeder, they'd made a hard angle behind me, walked up on the ridge to check the wind. Every one of them got nervous and either blew or left, and I made up my mind right then. I was like, this ain't going to work. I'm fixing to mess this deer up if I continue to try this.
Right.
And we adjusted our strategy, to kill him. But, yeah,
What about, do y'all, you don't see this as much as, 12, 14, 15 years ago. Big thing was scent blocker and scent lock suits and,
right.
All these. You don't see those suits as much anymore. I know there's some. What are y'all wearing, like scent suits? What is there?
There's
Under Armour had one out for a couple of years.
Yeah.
It was pretty good.
I strongly believe this, and I believe this so much now. It's gotten to the point to where I've been kind of lax on my scent control. You cannot beat the deer's nose. Absolutely cannot beat a deer's nose no matter what you do. But however, in cold scene, ozonics has helped us a little bit sometimes in the right scenario.
And I would say 50% of the time. It's not a end all be all.
Not 100%.
But I will say this, and I love being in a tree more than being in a box stand. But there's a couple box stands out there, and that's proven, man, from last year. I can tell you the truth on a redneck completely shut.
They
It's
can't smell
the
you.
best wind, and some people will disagree with me, but I have seen it, and I got friends that went. And I don't want to
Shut
hunt
all the
like
windows
that.
and
You
all the
shut the windows,
doors
but then you
with
take
the
a
bad
chance of
wind.
fogging up. And it's not fun. It's not a fun way of hunting. But if you're trying to kill this deer that is coming in, you got to do what you got to do
That's
when you
right.
want to kill a big deer.
That's right.
At
I think you're right, because I can remember having all the scent gear and using the washing detergent.
Oh, we still do
dry,
it.
I still do it.
And
but
I believe in
you know
getting
what?
real high, and I believe in trying to get as high as you can and getting. I don't know if there's such thing as getting over them, but I believe in trying to do that. But man, if you can play the wind, and that's when bow hunting becomes very frustrating.
I've seen guys though, and these older guys though, they didn't. They were wearing like some Walls coveralls, and they were having better success than we were. They didn't know what you asked. Hey, what dryer sheet you using? And like.
Well, if you watch, man, and I don't watch as much stuff, but if you watch, I do. Am a fan of the Drury's and because of the preparation. Now they hunt the best of the best. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. They hunt the best properties. Sure. But the way they position their deer stands, I always question it sometimes. But if you watch them, they film a lot with the windows shut, and they open it before they shoot, and it's a strong advocate of the stands they're hunting in and keeping that wind inside.
Mm-hmm.
And man, I've learned a lot of that little bitty stuff from that. But I don't always agree with where they put them. But hey, them dudes, they know as much as anybody out there about killing big whitetails and raising big whitetails. And I will tell you this: do not run that ozonics with the windows shut. Oh, about killing me.
It's a long irritant.
You about to kill me one day. I'm not gonna lie to
Last
you.
year,
I killed a
Cole
decent
on the
8-point a couple of years ago with my wife in the stand, and I was running it, and I shot him with a bow, about 140 inch 8-point. And when we tracked that deer, a buddy of mine came and helped me track it with her. I coughed. I was on my knees coughing. not looking for blood, coughing because it jacked me up. It really didn't affect her, but it did me. And I was like,
he got us last year, too. We were in a Banks blind when he killed his deer. We were muzzleloader season.
Yeah, I remember.
We had all the windows shut, had those ox running because the wind was bad.
I had to cough my jacket. It was, but the deer, our target deer was right across the river from him, and he was coming toward us. And the wind was, it was the last morning of muzzleloader season for us.
Yep.
It was snow, ice, everything on the, but we were like, we got to kill this deer, so you got to tough it up.
Is that the stand y'all toted across the
Yeah, it is. That's the same stand we toted across the river.
We had to keep it shut. I mean, we were fogging stuff up like we were wiping them. But, man, if we opened one window, boom, and there was a couple of does coming across. We were going to get, and as soon as we opened that window to shoot him,
he
put them brakes on.
With a bow, it probably wouldn't work, but with a gun, we were able to open the window, get the gun out, and kill him.
And we shot him.
Wow.
Thank goodness. But man, I don't know, dude. On that, I'm like Kyle, man. It's almost impossible to.
I think you're right, but I think you have to take every precaution.
Oh, I do. You definitely need to take showers. You definitely need to wash your clothes. Keep your clothes outside.
And I talked to a guy. He was in here a couple years ago, and he shot a couple 200+ inch deer. And has hunted with all those guys. Anyway, he was telling me that they did a bunch of research on it, and he was saying that every time you wash, your skin, then you take off that layer and it's fresher scent. And I never thought about that before. You ever heard that?
I hadn't thought about that, but
and
maybe
so
it makes sense.
Whenever they get into camp, they don't try to. I know I try to leave like my scent lock. I leave it in the woods, or if it's not, I know it's not going to rain, I hang it up, hang it outside, keep it outside. Bathing, and I know a lot of guys, they'll get up in the morning before they hunt, and they'll shower with the the soaps and stuff. And I think they had concluded that may have done more harm than good. So
I didn't thought about it. Something that maybe
I don't know. There's some research. Yeah, there's some research behind it. So, but just a thought.
Well, we kind of touch on this here at the end. We'll talk a little bit on what Simmons is offering, but let's talk a little bit about, go back to equipment a little bit and talk a little bit more about bows. And man, I don't shoot a Matthews, but man, it's almost like, how bad is Matthews dominating the market? I've shot them before and I have no complaint. It's great boat, but what is it? 3-to-1, 4-to-1, 5-to-1, 10-to-1? What is it that walk out these doors here in North Louisiana?
And I don't know. I can only speak for what happens here. So, but yeah, Matthews is really, the last 2 years they've had a really great bow. Their flagship bow. Last year the VXR, and we've sold as many or more VXRs this year than we did last year. Mm-hmm. The V3 this year, their short axle is a 27, and then their long axle is a 31. It's just unreal. But next year it could be Hoyt, it could be Bowtech. Right. It could be anybody. They've hit a home run. They really figured something out. And I think it all began with, the Triax, and then the Verdicts. And then when they went with the switch weight mods, and it's super easy to tune. It's by far the quietest bow in the shop, and a lot of people just they shoot them one time. And I do shoot a Matthews. I've got a VXR that I got last year. It's a 28 that I'm still shooting, and I really like it. But they hired me to sell bows, and I just I sell what people want, and so I'm gonna keep sticking them in your hand until you find one that goes, wow, I like that one.
And it's a personal preference a lot, but I don't think you can knock anything that Matthews is doing right now. But
I'm really excited to see. We've only got a couple months, and the new bows are gonna be out. And this is the 30-year anniversary for them, so I'm expecting something pretty good. Yeah, there's going to be a little wow factor.
At what point is it all now? Just every year I'm like, man, the only thing they change is some cosmetic issue. just something on the outside, and it's like, golly, they continue to. And this is a lot of bow companies.
I would hate to be a bow engineer, knowing that you got that pressure every year. You got to come up with something
last year
new.
I would have. I don't. With COVID last year, it kind of messed everything up, and it caused Hoyt. Their release wasn't till like January 1, and I think they're going to be the same this year, as far as I understand. But if it would have been me, that VXR was so good, I would have probably just came out with maybe a new color, new pattern or something like that, and I would have left it alone. But, I mean, this is the deal. What most people don't understand is the time and the research and the technology that they put into building these bows. They've been working on them for a couple of years prior to them ever even coming out, and they've got some guys that have been shooting them, you know, and that's always speculating. I have at least one or two guys call me a week, and they're like, hey, man, I heard, you know, PSE's coming out. They're going to have new cams this year. They're going to have I heard, you know, so-and-so. Man, I promise you, they don't leak that kind of stuff. It doesn't get out. There are some guys that are shooting their stuff, and they have been. But, man, they know if they let that out, it's not good. Yeah. I don't know what Matthews is going to do, but, yeah, I mean, that bow, the VXR and the V3, man, it's crazy. What we've done
and
just here.
And to be honest with you, for the money,
gosh,
I don't know if you can beat it.
No, and that's what you know. A lot of people say, well, heck yeah, for $7.99, I mean, I'd shoot that bow too. And I said, well, if it wouldn't,
that's what you're selling them for.
The VXR, and we've only got. I mean, it's going to go out of production in about less than a month. So, and we ran a special for tent sale. This year,
I remember.
We ran that bow for $7.99. That was a short or the long.
Anywhere in the country, I believe.
Oh, absolutely, short or long axle bow, and we had people drove from Jonesboro, Arkansas, Longview, Texas, New Orleans.
Oh, yeah.
Had one guy drove from Mobile, Alabama. I mean, just because they couldn't get. I mean, then just because of COVID, there is kind of a shortage on you know being able to get stuff, equipment. So, but yeah, I mean that's a great deal, and just. After no tax weekend, we dropped the price. So the V3 right now is $849,
that's really good,
and that's short or long axle. And I mean, y'all know this. We Jeff and Hunter, they made a commitment here, and as far as bow hunting, and you're not going to find a better price on bows. And I tell people that all the time. They come in, they shoot them, they're like, I don't know, and I'm like, dude, if you're worried about the price, I promise you, you're not gonna find a better price on bows. I had a guy call me from Vicksburg the other day. And I think he gave $1,099 for a V3, and he said, "How much y'all getting?" And I said, "Well, we just dropped them to $849." He's like, "No way!" And I was like, "Yeah." And he said, "I just give $1,099 for one." Mm-hmm. But this is the deal: they don't have the the quantity that we have, and they don't.
Fortunate enough to be able to do that.
Fortunate enough to be able to do that, and so yeah. But that's not just on Matthews. That's on every bow in the shop. We, if you think or you find somebody else got a better deal on a bow, I'll meet or beat it.
So you don't necessarily, when a guy comes in here asking for a bow, do you kind of pick their brain on what they've been shooting, what direction do they want to go? And if they say, man, I'm wanting to shoot this Hoyt, or I'm wanting to shoot this Elite, or this Bear, or whatever, you give them what they want first.
Absolutely.
And then you may say, hey, do you want to try this? Well, no matter what it may
be. Oh, yeah. Well,
at some point, you kind of want to.
Most guys have it in their mind. And most archers. I mean, now, I'm gonna have you're gonna have the guy who walks in and he's never shot a bow before. But most guys that are hunting, they already kind of know, and they're kind of like Ford and Chevy guys, or Dodge or whatever. I mean, they kind of
you can do to change their mind.
Yeah, I mean, they're gonna. But this is my deal. I mean, even with the Matthews guys, I mean, I'll have guys come in, they're still shooting like a Creed or Halon, whatever it is, and I'm like, they're like, and I'm like, well, here, shoot it, and then I'm like, well, let's just compare it, just to give you an idea of what Hoyt's got or what Bowtech's got, to give you an idea, because I want you to be able to have something to compare it to, and that's the deal. I'm just gonna keep shoving bows in your hand until you tell me, yeah, this is the one, and this year it's just Matthews has really got the bow.
I would say for the last 2 years it seems like from what I've seen. And I mean, we hunt.
And it's not. And listen, it's not that these other manufacturers aren't bringing a good product every year, because I mean, they do. I mean, that Hoyt's Venom, their aluminum bow this year, man, I really like that bow. I actually got a PSE Expedite NXT that I'm shooting. I just rigged it out and shooting, and probably going to try to take a few deer with it this year. It's fast. It's crazy fast. It's almost. I've got it set up identically to my VXR, and it's 20 feet. Same arrow, same weight, same draw length, same arrow. It's 20 feet faster.
Would you say those are your top 3 bows right now?
Yeah.
Or not necessarily.
Matthews, Hoyt, PSE.
Matthews, Hoyt, PSE. And listen, Elite, Elite's making. They've got a good bow.
I
that
mean, there's
Encore.
a lot of good bow
Oh,
companies out
there
It
is.
ain't just Matthews or
No,
Hoyt or nothing
it's,
else.
it's not.
I'm with you on that. I'm not.
It's not all.
there's a lot
But
of
and I
good.
think it's the region where we are. It's the culture here. I mean, most people around here, they're either going to shoot Hoyt or Matthews, and like I said, depending on what Hoyt brings to the table this year, I mean, they could have the hottest thing.
That's right.
You're right.
Before we close it, I'm gonna hit you with a round of questions, and you
Sure.
tell me what you do. If you're setting up, start off with, you setting up a woman's bow or a kid's bow or somebody's bow less than 50 pounds, what arrow and broadhead are you putting on it?
I mean, 500.
You can throw out brands.
Yeah.
That's fine,
500 spine. Easton's got a good arrow. Bow Hunter 6.5. That's not crazy heavy, like 8 grains per inch. Gold tip makes a really durable arrow. That Hunter or Hunter XT, either one of those. Carbon Express has a couple options. That's probably where I'm going. 500 spine arrow.
What broadhead you putting on it?
I'm gonna encourage them to go with a fixed, and probably gonna be a Slick Trick or a G5 Montec.
All right. If you're putting a rest on your bow, or somebody that's shooting a 70-pound bow, what rest you putting on it?
Well, I'm gonna ask them, either limb driven or cable driven,
Yeah.
and not everybody around here is familiar with the limb driven, but they're becoming more popular. And so Hamsky has a really good limb driven rest that I like, and probably that Trinity or the Hunter Pro. I mean, either one of those. If they want cable driven, QAD, that HDX got a lifetime warranty, and man, we can't keep them in stock. That's our best seller.
What arrows and broadheads you recommend?
Again, it goes back to, you want to be heavy, or you want punch, or you want speed. Probably one of our best sellers in the Easton is going to be the Axis, the Full Metal Jacket, for guys who want to go heavy, because you get the weight. Black Eagle makes a really good arrow. I'm shooting a Rampage this year. Victory has some really good.
I've seen Victory a lot more.
Yeah, and
a year or two.
I'm telling you, they're really, we can't keep that in stock, and there are more people. They have the outserts, and that's what everybody, this whole FOC front of center is, and so most of these have the outserts, the Black Eagle, the Victory. Easton has the new 4mm in the Axis and the Full Metal Jacket. Really getting a lot of good feedback on those. Gold tip, I mean, they're faithful, and you can't rule out Carbon Express. I mean, because guys around here have shot them for years, and so we do sell a lot of Carbon Express. They've kind of changed up. They don't have the blue streaks anymore, and so I still have a ton of guys walk in. They want the Maxima blue streaks, and they're like, I don't have that, so we have to find something comparable. And the Maxima Hunters, I shot those for years. Y'all probably remember those. They're the Destroyer Hunters now. So, but we do have a little bit of something for everybody in the shop. So,
yeah, I think mine and Cole's arrows way out about 485. I think,
and that's
all said and done.
Yeah, that's a good weight. And like I said, average arrow leaves shop's going to be somewhere around 430. I mean, and that's a good whitetail weight.
If like for a woman's bow or a kid's bow, if they're different or they're the same, which one would you recommend on that?
We've got a couple options now, and what you're looking for, especially with a woman, is low poundage and adjustability, and so you have to find something that'll be able to, 25, 26 inch draw length. So Elite and Bowtech both have it's a package bow, the Amplify and the Ember, and they're really good. They come with good accessories, and so I like those, and they will work as well with young archers, youth. Mission, which is made by Matthews, that hammer is what we call a grow with you bow. So for young guys, kids that are getting into archery, and it'll stay with them even into early adulthood, or until they get old enough to buy their own bow. PSE has a Stinger. There's tons of options out there for those new and not just new, but young archers and female archers. The other thing that we do have a lot of, and this is something we found out just in the last year, is left-handed guys. And so
backwards guys like me.
We sold in that tent sale that we sold 17 left-handed bows in 3 weeks, and that's crazy. And so, but I don't know if, I mean, I guess maybe left-handed guys talk, but I mean, it got to a point where we would about, once a day I'd get a guy call and say, hey, you got any left-handed bows? Like, yeah, and so we started trying to keep them in stock. This is something we started last year, but we have a pretty good assortment of lefties for left-handed guys, and I guess left-handed guys talk. And so, I mean, we've sold more left-handed bows this year. It's just unreal. It's crazy.
Word travels with that.
It does. It does.
If somebody buys a new bow, you recommend obviously them setting it up, but then a break-in period and then coming back and retuning it? Or, yeah.
Sure. Every bow we sell comes with a year free tuning, and usually not all strings, but most strings are going to have a little break-in period. And so once those strings stretch, and I encourage a guy, go shoot it a couple hundred times, and sometimes that peep is probably going, can on you or twist on you a little bit one way or the other. And so, bring it back in. We can put a twist in it, but shoot it, bring it back in. We can check the timing on it, make sure the rest, and shoot it through the paper and make sure you're still good. And again, that just builds confidence. And you want to, whenever a guy leaves here, I want them to have the confidence in their bow to know that, they can go out and kill with it.
You're right.
Last one. This is the burner. Somebody comes in there shooting a 70-pound full-size bow, and you got one of them that you're going to sell them. What are you selling? I'm going to break that question in two parts. One, money's not an option. One is the best deal for the best price.
Maybe the same bow.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I really like it depends. So the VXR or the V3. I mean, it'd have to be one of those, and right. They're going to probably want to shoot. It depends on if they're long draw or short draw. And if they're long draw, probably the V3. If they're short draw, probably the VXR 28.
VXR 28 is 28 axle to axle.
Yeah, that's 28 axle to axle, and the V3, the 31 for the long draw guy. And there's not a whole lot. People say, well, what's the major difference between the two? And the 27 is just a little bit too short. I like the 28 for guys that want a short axle bow. But if they're long draw, man, at 31, it's smooth, and it's got the pass parallel limbs on it. It's quiet, and it's just dead in the hands.
Well, Cole, you got anything else to add?
No, that was good, man. We bow season's just right around the corner. We're a week, 2 weeks away. 2 weeks away. And,
Arkansas is this Saturday. I mean,
getting up on it really quick, and we appreciate Todd staying late and going over this with us.
That's right, man. I know Todd does too. We enjoy talking about hunting whenever we can. Obviously, that's why we're here. But bow hunting, rifle hunt, gun, deer hunting, I thoroughly enjoy it. So thank you for letting me pick your brain on that stuff. And we appreciate you being here with us. So we'll tune in with us. We should have a new episode up almost every week. So stay tuned to Simmons Sporting Goods All Things Hunting podcast. And if you ever have any topics that you'd like for us to really dive into, feel free to follow Simmons Sporting Goods on Instagram and Facebook. Shoot us messages and let us know some things that you'd like to hear about, and we'll give you our best shot at it. But thank everybody for listening. Appreciate y'all really for being here.
You bet.